My girlfriend took my money for rent, then disappeared, so I found her new apartment, took her to court, and left her crying in front of the judge. I'm a 29-year-old guy who thought I finally found someone I could build a future with. Her name was Samantha, the kind of woman who could make a crowded room feel small when she laughed. When we first met, she was working 2 jobs, full of dreams about starting her own business one day. I admired that about her, the hustle, the confidence. It's the spark that made me believe she was different. When she moved into my small apartment, it felt like the natural next step. We weren't perfect, but we shared everything: groceries, bills, inside jokes. Late-night plans about where we'd be 5 years from now. I used to wake up and see her sitting by the window with her laptop, sunlight catching in her hair, and think, yeah, this is what peace feels like. After a few months, she started handling the rent payments. It was her idea. "You already cover most of the groceries," she said, smiling as she reached for my hand. "Let me take care of this part. I'll just collect the money and transfer it directly to the landlord." Sounded fair, even responsible. I transferred my half each month without thinking twice. Trusting her felt natural. She knew my bank password, my schedule, even my weaknesses. Sometimes, when I'd hand her the money, she'd joke, "Don't worry, babe. I'm not running away with it." I'd laugh, not knowing those words would come back to haunt me. We even started apartment hunting together, scrolling through listings and imagining where our future would be. I remember her saying, "We just need a little more savings, and we'll move somewhere nicer. Something that feels more us." Back then, I believed her every word. I didn't see the cracks forming behind that warm smile. Not yet. But looking back now, I realized the illusion was already in motion. It started so subtly I didn't even question it at first. A few weeks after Samantha took over rent payments, she began acting busier. She'd rush out early for work meetings or come home later than usual, blaming traffic or overtime. I wanted to be supportive. I told myself she was just hustling, the same driven woman I fell for. But slowly, little inconsistencies started piling up. One morning, a letter from the landlord arrived. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a late payment notice. My chest tightened. I waited until she came home that evening, holding the letter in my hand. "Hey, Sam," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Did we miss rent last month?" Her eyes flicked to the envelope, and then back to me. "Oh, that," she said casually, tossing her purse on the couch. "Yeah, he messed up the payment system again. I already called him. It's sorted." Her tone was so confident, so unbothered, that I felt stupid for even asking. She walked over, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You worry too much, babe." That night, she made pasta and poured us wine like nothing happened. I told myself I was paranoid, that love meant trusting her. But deep down, something small cracked. Over the next few weeks, I noticed she stopped showing me receipts. When I asked once, she smiled and said, "Do you really want to micromanage your girlfriend?" I thought we were past that. Her words stung. I laughed it off, desperate to prove I wasn't controlling. Still, something about her new calm felt rehearsed. When I'd come home, she'd already have the rent talk handled. I wanted to believe her. So I did, but the letters didn't stop coming. Each one felt heavier, as if the paper itself was warning me, and I ignored every single one. It was a Friday morning when everything finally collapsed. Samantha had packed a small duffel bag and said she was heading to her sister's place for the weekend. She kissed me goodbye, told me not to wait up, and left humming her favorite song. I didn't think much of it. She'd done weekend visits before. But that night, when I texted her to check in, the message didn't deliver. By Saturday, her phone went straight to voicemail. By Sunday evening, unease turned to panic. I called her sister, who sounded confused. "Samantha, she's not here. She said she was spending the weekend with you." My stomach dropped. I opened our closet. Half her clothes were gone. Drawers emptied. Her laptop charger missing. But the worst part? The rent notice taped to our door. Bold red letters. Final warning. 3 months overdue. I remember sitting on the couch, staring at that paper while my mind refused to connect the dots. I pulled up my bank app. Transfer after transfer. Every month. Like clockwork. Thousands gone. My hands started shaking. When the landlord finally showed up that evening, his voice was sharp. "Look, I've been patient, but 3 months is too much. If I don't get payment by next week, you're out." 3 months? I echoed, my throat dry. "I sent the money. Every single month," he frowned. "To her, maybe, but not to me." It hit me then, the truth I didn't want to face. Samantha hadn't been paying rent at all. She'd been pocketing the money, smiling at me over dinner while feeding me lies. I tried calling again, blocked. Every platform blocked. Her Instagram vanished, like she'd deleted her entire existence overnight. That night I didn't sleep. The apartment felt colder, emptier, like she'd taken the warmth with her. And as I sat there in silence, one thought kept replaying in my head. She really did run away with it. The next few weeks were a blur, a haze of confusion, humiliation, and bills I couldn't pay. The apartment that once felt like a home now echoed with emptiness. Every corner reminded me of her favorite mug, her perfume still clinging to the sheets, the faint smell of her shampoo in the bathroom. I wanted to erase her, but everything around me screamed her name. I tried calling mutual friends, hoping someone knew where she went. Most of them avoided the topic. One finally sighed and said, "Man, I don't know what happened between you two, but she told people you stopped paying rent." Hearing that nearly made me laugh bitterly. Not only had she stolen from me, but she'd already rewritten the story to make herself the victim. Days turned into weeks. I picked up extra shifts just to stay afloat, juggling late payments while pretending I was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. I'd lie awake every night, replaying every moment, every smile, every promise. How could I have missed it? The fake calls to her landlord, the secretive messages, the sudden need for privacy. It all made sense now. Then came the message that shattered what little denial I had left. A mutual acquaintance, someone from her old job, mentioned seeing her downtown. She looked good, he said. New clothes, new phone, new guy. My heart dropped. New guy? I asked. "Yeah," he said, lowering his voice. She said they'd just moved in together. Someplace near the river. Real fancy. I hung up without saying another word. That night, I sat alone in the dark, the city lights flickering outside the window. My reflection stared back at me, a man who'd been robbed, lied to, and made into a fool. For the first time, anger replaced heartbreak. Quiet, steady, dangerous anger. If she thought she could vanish without consequence, she was wrong. A few days later, I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I needed proof, something to make sense of the mess she left behind. I started small, tracing old messages, cross-checking receipts, even digging through old screenshots. That's when I noticed something strange. An email confirmation from a moving company dated 2 days before she supposedly went to her sister's. The destination? A high-end apartment complex downtown. I froze. My heart pounded as I stared at the address. At first I told myself it couldn't be her. Maybe she'd just helped a friend move. But the more I dug, the more the truth clawed its way to the surface. A mutual friend finally cracked during a casual call. "Look, man, I didn't want to get involved, but yeah, she moved into that place with someone else. A guy from her office, Jason?" The name hit me like a punch. Jason, the same coworker, she swore was just a friend. I remembered her once saying, "He's married, babe. Don't be jealous." That lie burned the brightest. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove to that address, parking across the street. The building was pristine. Glass balconies, polished marble lobby, luxury cars in the lot. I waited, half hoping I was wrong. But then, there she was, Samantha, stepping out in a sleek coat, laughing with him. Jason. He wrapped his arm around her, waist like she'd always belonged there. It felt like the air was sucked out of my lungs. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream, to confront, to demand answers. But I didn't. I just watched, silent, invisible, as the woman who once shared my bed walked into a building paid for with my money. That's when something inside me shifted. The heartbreak turned cold, calculated. She thought she disappeared. She had no idea. I just found her. The next morning, I woke up with a strange kind of calm, the kind that comes when you stop hoping for an apology and start planning for justice. I wasn't going to confront her in some parking lot or beg her to explain. No, she'd already made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I started by gathering everything: months of bank transfers, screenshots of our rent conversations, and every message where she promised, "I'll send it to the landlord tomorrow." Each one felt heavier than the last. Every word she wrote was proof of betrayal. Wrapped in fake affection, I reached out to the landlord again, asking for official documentation of the missed payments. He agreed, though he gave me a sympathetic look when I explained what happened. "You're not the first person she's fooled, kid," he muttered. That line hit hard. How many others had fallen for her charm before me? A few days later, I walked into a lawyer's office with a stack of printed evidence in my hands. The lawyer, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, flipped through the papers and said, "You've got a solid case. This isn't just a breakup, it's fraud." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. I wasn't powerless anymore. Filing the court papers felt surreal. My name against hers like a line drawn in the sand. As I signed the final page, the lawyer smiled faintly. "You'll see her again soon," she said, "but this time on your terms." That night, I sat in my quiet apartment, staring at the empty space where her things used to be. I imagined her laughing in that luxury apartment, completely unaware that a storm was quietly building behind her. She thought she'd left me broken and defeated. She didn't realize I was just getting started. 2 weeks after filing the case, I got my first message from her, a number I didn't recognize, but the tone was unmistakable. "Hey, can we talk? Please don't make this a big deal." For a moment, my hands froze over the screen. I could almost hear her voice, soft and manipulative, dripping with the same false sweetness she used every time she needed something. My pulse quickened, part anger, part disbelief. After everything she'd done, she had the nerve to act like I was the problem. I didn't reply. Not immediately. Instead, I scrolled through her old texts, the ones where she called me the only person she could ever trust. I laughed out loud. The irony hurt more than anything else. 2 days later, another message came. "You're overreacting." I didn't steal anything. I just needed space. "You wouldn't understand." Then another. "Do you really want to ruin both our lives over a misunderstanding?" Every text was carefully worded, like a trap designed to pull me back into her web of guilt. But the final straw came a few hours later, a notification from a mutual friend's Instagram. Story.Samantha. Sitting in her new apartment, wine glass in hand, laughing, the caption read, "New beginnings." That image burned itself into my mind. Any trace of pity evaporated. I realized she wasn't scared of what she'd done. She was confident I'd let it go, just like before. She thought I was still that naive, trusting man who believed her stories, so I did reply. One message. Cold and final. "See you in court." No more pleading. No more guilt. Just quiet resolve. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Because for the first time, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the reckoning she never saw coming. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper, coffee, and anxiety, a strange mix that clung to the air like tension itself. I sat quietly on the wooden bench, my evidence folder clutched in my hands, heart pounding with a calm fury. Across the aisle, Samantha walked in wearing designer heels and a polished beige coat. She looked radiant, smug even, like she was about to charm her way through another lie. She didn't look at me at first. But when her eyes finally met mine, her smile faltered, just slightly. Maybe it was the confidence in my posture, the lawyer beside me flipping through files like we were ready for battle. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My chest tightened as the case was called. My name versus Samantha, small claims fraud. Hearing it spoken out loud felt surreal. The story that had broken me was now reduced to a line in a docket. But I knew what it really meant, truth against deceit. Samantha went first, her voice steady and practiced. "Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding," she said. "We were in a relationship. Money was shared. There was never any intent to deceive. Her lawyer nodded along, as if she were the picture of innocence. Then it was my turn. My hands trembled slightly as I handed the judge a thick folder. These are our messages, bank transfers, and the landlord's official letters. She took my rent payments for 3 months and never sent them. I was nearly evicted because of her. The judge's eyes narrowed as he flipped through the pages. The room went silent except for the sound of paper turning. Then he looked up at Samantha. Is this your number on these messages? Her lips parted, her voice cracking. I guess it is, but he cut her off sharply. Then I suggest you stop talking. For the first time, her mask slipped. The calm confidence drained from her face. I didn't smile. I just sat there, watching her lies crumble in the very room she thought she could control, and for the first time since she left, I felt something I hadn't in months. Power. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. Could almost hear her pride cracking. Samantha shifted in her seat, her hands trembling as the judge read each exhibit aloud. Her own words betrayed her. I'll send it tomorrow. The landlord said it's fine. Trust me. Babe, every text was a nail in the coffin she built herself. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge shut it down with a sharp glance. Miss Samantha, he said firmly, you took money under false pretenses. This isn't a breakup issue. It's a breach of trust and financial fraud. That word fraud echoed in the room. Her composure finally cracked. Wait, no, please, she stammered, her voice suddenly soft, desperate. It wasn't like that. I was going through so much. He said he'd help me. He wanted to pay for things. Her tears came fast, messy, and theatrical, but the room stayed silent. I watched her unravel, the same way I once did alone in my empty apartment. I didn't gloat. I didn't interrupt. I just sat there, hands clasped, feeling the weight of every sleepless night. Every humiliating moment when I questioned my own sanity. Now it was her turn to face reality, and there was no one left to lie to. The judge leaned forward. His tone measured but final. You are hereby ordered to repay the plaintiff the full amount of 3 months' rent, plus damages and legal costs. Samantha's sobs grew louder. Please, Your Honor, I can't afford that. I didn't mean he raised a hand. Intent doesn't erase consequence. Court is adjourned. She collapsed into her seat, face buried in her hands, shaking. The sound of her crying followed me as I walked out of the courtroom, the same hallway she once walked away from me without. A second thought, I didn't look back, because in that moment, I finally understood justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet, cold, precise, and it leaves the guilty trembling in the silence they created. When I stepped out of the courthouse, the sunlight hit me like a spotlight, warm, blinding, and strangely cleansing. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying her lies anymore. The papers in my hand weren't just proof of victory. They were proof that I had survived something that was meant to break me. But the funny thing about justice is, it doesn't feel the way you imagine. I thought I'd feel triumphant, maybe even ecstatic. Instead, there was just this quiet emptiness, like my heart hadn't caught up with my head yet that night. I sat alone in my apartment. The same place that once echoed with her laughter now stood silent, almost peaceful. I cooked dinner for myself, ate slowly, and stared at the empty chair across from me. It used to hurt, but now, it just felt like space. Space I'd earned back. Friends called to celebrate. You did it, man. One of them cheered. Another joked. Bet she didn't see that coming. I laughed with them, but deep down, I knew this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure, the kind that doesn't come from watching someone cry, but from realizing you no longer care if they do. A few days later, I got the official letter from the court. Repayment confirmed, order processed. I placed it in a drawer and didn't touch it again. I wasn't interested in the money anymore. What I really gained was clarity, the understanding that love without respect isn't love, and trust without truth is just blindness. I poured myself a drink, leaned back, and let the quiet fill the room. The man I was when she left, desperate, heartbroken, humiliated, was gone. In his place sat someone new, someone unshakable, someone who finally understood that peace doesn't come from revenge, It comes from reclaiming yourself. A few weeks passed, and life began to settle into something resembling peace. I'd started new routines, early mornings, gym sessions, cooking real meals again. Every small act felt like rebuilding a version of myself she'd tried to destroy. But then one afternoon, I got a call from a mutual friend that made me pause mid-step. "Hey man," he said carefully, "you didn't hear this from me, but Samantha's having a rough time." I didn't answer. He went on, "Her boyfriend, that Jason guy, kicked her out. Apparently, he found out she was lying about everything. The rent, her job, even her business plans. She's been couch hopping for weeks. No one wants to deal with her." I stayed silent for a moment, feeling that strange mix of pity and satisfaction twist inside me. The same woman who once strutted around in designer clothes and laughed in my face was now burning through every bridge she'd built on lies. "She's been asking around about you," he added. "Said she wants to make things right." I almost laughed. The irony was almost too perfect. The woman who stole my peace was now begging for scraps of it. But I wasn't the same person anymore. "I wish her well," I finally said, "but I'm done being her safety net." When I hung up, I sat there for a long moment, just letting that truth sink in. It didn't feel like revenge, it felt like balance. Like the universe had quietly handed her the same lessons she once forced on me. Later that night, as I watched the city lights flicker through my window, I whispered to myself, "You can steal someone's money, but not their peace." And for the first time, I didn't feel angry or bitter, just free. It's been nearly a year since that courtroom day, and I barely recognize the person I used to be. The guy who once begged for explanations, who kept checking his phone, hoping for a message, he's gone. What replaced him isn't bitterness. It's quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need validation, only peace. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to the river, funny enough, not far from where she used to live. But mine's different. It's humble, simple, and completely mine. Every piece of furniture, every dollar spent, came from me and me alone. I start my mornings with coffee on the balcony, the city waking beneath me, and for the first time in years, I feel grounded. Sometimes I think about her, not with hate, just a distant curiosity. I wonder if she ever understood what she destroyed. Not the money, not the relationship, but the trust. Because once trust is gone, nothing else matters. One evening, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a final repayment, the last of what she owed me. No note, no apology, just a transaction. I placed it on my desk, smiled faintly, and left it unopened. Because the truth is, I didn't need her money anymore. I'd already been paid in full with closure. I sat down, opened my journal, and wrote one last entry about her. A line that summed up everything. She thought she left me broke. But I was never richer than the day I let her go. Then I closed the notebook, set it aside, and looked out at the fading sunset. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was rebirth. And as the light dimmed and the city lights flickered on, I realized something. She disappeared with my money, but I found something far more valuable in return: myself.